Thanks.
Let's go ahead and bring in Democratic Congressman right now from Tennessee, Steve Cohen, who sits on the Judiciary Committee. And Congressman, a good morning to you. Thanks so much for being with us again. What do you make of McCarthy's seemingly constant involvement in this probe? I mean, he's threatened to strip GOP members of their committee assignments if they serve on the select committee. He's threatened big tech companies who comply with requests for phone records. Does this amount to obstruction?
Well, it does, and it's obvious that he and the Republicans who don't want to see the records of phone conversations with President Trump from members of Congress are trying to hide something. It came out that President Trump, when he called over to the Justice Department and asked, I think it was Mr. Rosenstein, to help him and to say that the election was crooked. And he said, don't worry about anything else, just say that, and my friends in Congress will help me. That Trump knew he had people in Congress, like some of the people, if not all of the people on that list, the telephone records are being sought, who would help him by mouthing on social media and any places they could, the big lie. And they would spread the big lie to the extent that they would attract the terrorists, militia, guerrillas that they did to Washington on January 6th. They would assault the Capitol, and they would try to overtake the Electoral College and keep Trump in power through a corrupt and un-American banana republic type assault. And that's what we saw. And Trump was behind it. And Congress people helped him and aided and abetted him. And they're fearful.
You were talking about a December 2020 call in which Trump was on the phone, I believe, with Jeffrey Rosen and then Deputy AG Richard Donoghue in pressuring them to say the election was corrupt. I want to talk about the ongoing security threats at the Capitol, because far-right groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, they're already under investigation for the insurrection. Now the AP is reporting they're planning another rally September 18th to demand justice for those charged in the January 6th investigation. Are you worried here about what could transpire, and does that fencing need to go back up?
I am worried, and I think they could get involved in trying to attack the Capitol again. These people are not seeing reality. They're coming up there fired up with the idea that the election was stolen, and that these people who assaulted the citadel of our democracy, the sign, the icon, the representation of our republic, which the 9/11 people from Afghanistan, Osama bin Laden tried to attack. It's pretty well grounded that the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania was headed to the Capitol, that they will do damage to the Capitol. And they are the new damage and the new threat to the United States of America. And I am fearful, and I do think that they will, they're up to no good. And I think when we saw Representative Madison Cawthorn talk about possible bloodshed in the future, and he would take up arms against his fellow Americans, he was being dramatic. But I also think he was showing what some people think, and that there will be problems in the future. And we saw the man come up from North Carolina threatening, saying he had a bomb, which he didn't, but putting fear in the Capitol. He had dislike for President Biden and the Democrats. We can see that again. So I think it's possible we'll need fencing.
Congressman, before we let you go, I want to talk about the federal unemployment benefits ending this weekend. We're talking about nearly 12 million Americans who are going to lose at least some of their benefits tomorrow. What do you want to see either the White House do, or is there anything Congress can do?
Well, indeed, Congress can act. And the unemployment benefits in the past have been passed through legislation, and I think it takes Congress to do the extra benefits. There are a lot of people still suffering economically from this pandemic, from the repercussions of closed schools and jobs that have left the office and put some people out of work. We have to draw a fine line and fine-tune it. I think there was some corruption in past government programs. A lot with PPP, the different program, I guess PPA, but more with different benefits we've given out. And I think we have to be careful, but I do think we have to steer more additional federal unemployment benefits to people who are out of work, and then it can be shown that they have tried to get work and cannot get work.
Yeah.
Because there are in that position, and they need to be they're part of the safety net.
Yeah, as we saw from Friday's report, it is still a tough environment out there. Congressman Steve Cohen, thanks for your time this morning. Good to talk to you.